Hello, 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 hello. It's good to see you. Say hello.
Welcome to the Huskies Hockey Podcast. This is Weldie sitting in. We're calling up the bench. We got Alexander Fern, sports director at KVSC. Sports director, that's your title, right?
Indeed.
Does some play-by-play as well for KVSC. Are you also running the KVSC Twitter account? Is that you behind, or is you taking
the KVSC
that?
hockey Twitter?
Yeah.
Earlier this year, yes. Usually it's whoever does color for the game is doing the Twitter, but as of late, our in-studio producer Gavin Nelson has been running it just to give us a little bit less things to worry about.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, Alex, you can follow him at Alex in the booth. Obviously a wonderful follow when it comes to some insights and when it comes to both the men's and the women's Huskies team. But right off the bat, let's just kick it off talking about the big sweep in Kalamazoo. Kind of a house of horrors there. Last 3 times there. We've been swept out of the building. Some games looking not so great. We're able to sweep them 6 points, and we sit at the top of the NCHC. Biggest question I have: how are there no hot dogs at Lawson? Like, what is that about?
I went to Friday before the game. Me and Zach Chapman, one of our members who does broadcasting for us for men's and women's hockey. We went out to like this hockey bar to eat before the game because we're like, oh yeah, let's Kalamazoo. We'll go see like what places to eat. By the way, great hamburgers. By the way, they had great food. And I get to the rink, I'm like, I'm not that hungry. We'll hold off on the hot dog review that we do. Like, I'll hold off until tomorrow. And before the game, like I think 30 minutes before doors open or whatever, I'm like walking around the what quote concourse that they have. It's just like I'm walking around.
It's just a high school rink.
Yeah, I'm driving around, or not driving, but I'm walking around and there's like 3 like food booths, and I'm looking around. I'm like, where? If I have issues, and I ask somebody, I'm like, do you guys do hot dogs here? And they go, oh no, we don't. And I sit there like flabbergasted, and I go back to our booth, which we weren't. You know how Lawson has like the press box that like hangs down from the arena. Mm-hmm. We're on the opposite side of that in the TV camera wells because they don't exactly have a lot of space there, which is fine. So I get there and I talk to Zach. I'm like, dude, they don't have any hot dogs here, and I make the tweet, and I say, I have some bad news. And Giselle, who is a really good friend of ours, who replies to most of our tweets about Husky hockey, she goes, when you started off with the tweet, I thought something bad happened to the team, and I'm like, no, I'm just not having a good time right now. And then Zach said it dropped the arena a whole letter grade. So I mean,
that's
I'm
fair.
a little upset. Although I will say, Kalamazoo got, when I was going in, I wasn't expecting a good hockey rink. I wasn't expecting like a lot of good things to come out. I'd heard bad things. I love that place.
Yeah.
That place, when it gets bumping and the crowd's into it and they're chanting select words at Dylan Anhorn, it is phenomenal. That rink is one of the best places I've ever called hockey in.
Yeah, and it looked like it had a good atmosphere, especially when they had stuff to cheer about on Friday. And that translated, I thought, really well over. It's one of those. A lot of those Michigan actually arenas are some that are on my bucket list, so to speak, when it comes to maybe when I get retired. I'm a millennial, so I probably won't be able to retire, but if I am ever able to, I would like to do like a Northern Michigan Tech kind of road trip, up there, and some of the Western Michigan, I like to have a game there.
A little far out of the way, but maybe go to Ferris F and State too.
Oh, fair. No, I'm not setting foot at that place. So, Huskies win 3-2 on Friday, and end up winning 3-0 on Saturday. So I'll just kind of start off giving my thoughts on the game. You being there, calling the game. Obviously, you probably have a little bit of a different take, or will have different opinions, but I mean, just throughout the stretch of the game, I thought St. Cloud with the aggressiveness that Western Michigan played with, I think that caused a lot of troubles, a lot of turnovers for St. Cloud. And through some of the stretch of the game, St. Cloud didn't look very good. So it was, I think that might be a little bit of a blueprint to kind of beat the St. Cloud team, is just having that aggressiveness coughed up a lot of turnovers. Their second goal, Granger, the puck that bounced up into the slot, that was, caused by some of the aggressiveness. But that's something I was, kind of my main takeaway when it comes to it. But Huskies were able to get on the, or late in the first, Huskies were down 1-0 on Cassetti's goal, and then Barrett Hall on a nice give and go from Adam Ingren, got the return pass, and it was that kind of that little leaker that we're so used to from Castor over the past couple of years, that I thought Rowe actually had a couple of those leakers that he would definitely like back, that was able to get through.
I've always thought the leakers were more of a Rennick thing than a Castor thing.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Yes. Rennick. Yes. The Rennick leakers.
Castor was just the Quinnipiac game, and I've forgiven him for his transgressions. So, which I do want to touch on. A good thing for Jackson Castor, now teammates with Micah Miller again in Atlanta for the ECHL Atlanta Gladiators.
Yeah. So, but one thing that I really loved about Friday's game is that Granger got that turnover, was able to pot it in past Bassie, and Huskies were able to respond. This was one of those things that was like, not only were we able to respond, able to get one Jack Rogers in front with a beautiful, looked like backhand roof, just shot in close. That was able to convert, and that was 50 seconds later. And then Alpha, how his season has been just beyond anyone's expectations, at least beyond my expectations, maybe not anyone's, maybe not his, but just to see everything click as well. Because last year he went into so many times where he just kind of disappeared, and he was able to kind of come back and be a solid point producer. But here he's just been hitting the ground running, just shooting, and it's been going in. Not only responding after Granger's goal, but to keep up that pressure and then put it on, what was kind of the big point for me. I'll talk about our defensive shell in a second, but I want to get your take there about the response after Granger's goal, who I thought Granger had a great weekend for Western.
Luke Granger's one of the best players in college hockey, plain and simple. I mean, he's the life breath of that Western Michigan team. He is so fast. He just makes plays that simply aren't there when I see him, and then all of a sudden he's wide open in the slot. But that goal was just, it took a couple of weird hops. St. Cloud turned it over. Nothing Bassie really could have done on that shot, to be honest. I know we give him ragging for the high blocker issues that he's had in the past, but I mean it's. The
first goal that was in close, I took a screenshot. I took a picture of it. He went down a little bit early on that one.
Yeah, and he always has that issue, I feel like, early in games. I think, like, after the first period, I think he just settles in really nicely. We saw that in the St. Thomas series. He didn't see a shot until, like, 7 minutes into the first period, and then the floodgates opened for the Tommies. And, he saw, like, 6 shots in the first 3 minutes against St. Thomas on that Sunday game, and he got a shutout. So it all comes to whatever he's seeing first, I think, for Bassie that makes him so successful. But, yeah,
so that defensive shell, we need to move that to the beginning of the game to get Bassie kind of going.
Maybe. Wait back, I guess. Then Rogers' goal, he's a guy that I had very high hopes for coming into this season.
You and Go Huskies woo.
I really liked what I saw from him the second half of last year. He was just prototypical, down low, bang, bang type player. He's just going to get in front of the net and score those greasy ones. He scored a greasy one, his first goal of the season on that Friday game. Yeah, just a puck that kind of magnetated or like levitated towards his stick, and he just roofed it on Cameron Rowe, who was way out of position. But you can't really you score what you're supposed to. I mean,
Yeah.
he made a good play. He also, I know it doesn't really matter, but he sellied after that goal too. Like, I had never seen that boy selly before too. I feel like a giant monkey came off of his back on that goal too, because he also then after that, Veeti Miettinen, 35 seconds later, walks in on a 1-on-3 weird play, harsh angle, uses a guy as a screen and fires it low glove on Cameron Rowe.
I couldn't tell from the camera. Did that get tipped at all, or was it just straight in with the screen?
No, it was just straight in, and Veeti's shot, Coach Larson will tell you, it's so deceptive because he brings it towards him like kind of like a pseudo toe drag before he shoots. At least when he's not shooting one-timers on the power play, he'll pull it in and he'll just throw it on you, and it just shifts a little bit. I don't know if he creates like any, not to be a baseball term, but like spin rate on a puck, if that's measurable at all. And then Rowe just gets beat clean. And you touched on it earlier. He goes through these dry spells, and talking to him earlier, like pre-season, he talked about he just wants to get off to a good start and just continue to build it from there. And the guy has 6 goals in 6 straight games. Mm-hmm. He's, in all honesty, top 3 player in the NCHC right now, probably just behind Jackson Blake. And I can't really name another one right now. In all honesty, maybe, I don't know, if you ask, I'm blanking on somebody else that's really better than Veeti right now, in all honesty. Yeah, maybe now. Dylan Anhorn. Anhorn's been pretty good. He's been a point per game player so far this season. We're
going to see Ben Steeves coming up.
That's true. Yeah, we'll see Steeves, and he has a good history against St. Cloud.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that, but we'll touch on Minnesota Duluth a little bit later.
But yeah, Veeti, he mentioned that he just wanted to get off to a fast start, and he's doing that. And it feels like we're seeing more of freshman year Veeti Miettinen right now, where he's facilitating his own play. He's not depending on Yami Kronola and Zach Okabe to give him the puck in open space. He's been the driver for it. And that's one thing we saw like last year when he kind of went vacant for a little bit, is when Yami Kronola was scoring all those goals, Veeti Miettinen wasn't scoring. Yep. And when Yami wasn't scoring, Veeti was the one scoring. So it's kind of just a trade-off. And I don't want to look too far into it, but with Yami gone and Werner on that line now, his brother, who he's played with in the past, both in juniors and, just growing up, he's kind of just turned it up on an upper echelon, both offensively and defensively. And Zach Okabe is kind of taking a back seat to it. And we'll touch on him a little bit. He got a point on Saturday, which I feel will open up his game a little bit more as well.
God, I hope so.
Veeti has just been he's kind of been the revelation so far for the Huskies this year, because the Huskies needed him to be good for the Huskies to, do a lot this year, especially after losing guys like Crookshank, like Micah Miller, like Aiden Spellacy, like those guys. And, Veeti's just been good.
I do have to say that on Saturday, because they put the whistles away on Friday, not to say that there was a lot of like easy penalty calls. Saturday was a different story, and I thought they were going to get Veeti for an interference call, which would have been his first career. There was one instance where I was like, ooh, the way they're calling, that one was close, and they ended up not calling it. So he's still got 0 penalty minutes in his career.
I think if St. Cloud would like win an 8-0 game and like he has like 6 goals and he takes a penalty, I think we might not hear from him in like 4 weeks. He just won't talk. That man holds himself to such a high standard when it comes to how he disciplines himself, which is really good to see because he's also just like a good guy. He's not as loud as like Yami would be, but he's quiet, confident, cool, collected. Just everything you'd want in just your leading goal scorer.
Now, I would have to go back, but, kind of thinking about his previous goals and all of the goals he scored this year. Has he scored on the one-timer this year? He's got 7 goals on the season. I don't think any of them have been on the one-timer, have they?
And
that was like the bread and butter goals last year. Yeah, he's had a couple power play. I don't think they were the one-timer, though.
The only one that I think might have been the one-timer was the one at like the late tying goal against St. Thomas where we were in the black jerseys at home. That might have been a one-timer, or it might have just been like a walking wrister. I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look as well. But yeah, he sure loved that one timer last year. He still likes it. He's just not scoring right now. So I mean, I would much rather him score with the wrist shot than just throw another one timer right into a dude's chest. But that's
well, I think that's also being telegraphed well. But also, I think Huskies have been able to kind of play off that a little bit and kind of change lane and get some open up some lanes as well the other way. So.
Not to get too off topic, but not that it matters at all, but with the power play for St. Cloud State this year, you have a couple of scoring opportunities. You have Anhorn who can throw one in from the point. You have guys like
goal
Veeti
scorer Molinar.
Yeah, Molinar's on the first power play unit, and
like everybody expected.
And not to chew you out a little bit, but Sahlquist looks good, man.
God, he does. Like I have to give him props for how much I've been dragging him, for his career. But over the last couple of weeks, really that whole line that Kupka, Sahlquist, Molinar line has been way above my expectations when they were first put together.
The grizzled young veterans is what we call them.
So it's been. Yeah, so like they've been great to see. I just would have never guessed Molinar being our second leading goal scorer on the team.
You and me both.
So, but like the goal he scored on Friday or on Saturday, that power play goal, really reminiscent of that third hat trick goal that he scored last week against Miami, where he just found a soft spot. He was left alone and it was just an easy tap in right there. Or was that just
how many people expired? Think of? But that was just when the power play expired.
Yeah, that was. Yeah. But
yeah, I can see it like Pat Firschweiler, like looking over his lines before game. It's like, who's thinking about Joe Molinar on the back door on a power play,
right? So
and yeah, you mentioned like the whistles being blown a lot on Saturday. Sam Colangelo getting that major did not help Western Michigan whatsoever. That's your second line right winger there, transferred from Northeastern. Had high hopes for him. I personally thought Lidke had a play earlier than that where I thought he could have gotten the gate as well, where he put his guy into the boards pretty hard with the cross check. But then again, it doesn't matter anymore because those games are over. But yeah, and St. Cloud's penalty kill as well. Like, I think they're 10 for their last 10 on the penalty kill right now, which is, you're going up against a top penalty or a power play in Western Michigan. You're going to at least do somewhat decent if you're 10 for 10 against them. So, I mean, special teams have just been solid for St. Cloud all around so far this season, 10 games in.
And coming up against next week too, I think Minnesota Duluth is sitting at 35% on the power play as of right now, which is ungodly high. So it'll be tested again this week.
It's the only way they can score right now.
Yeah, that's true. So back to Friday's game, Western Michigan is down 2-1. I felt like, down 3-1 or 3-2. Jesus, I'll get it right. And then I felt we go into that defensive shell, and I felt like it was a lot of chipping and just get it out of the zone type situations. And even sometimes I didn't think it was that effective. Sometimes we weren't able to clear the zone. I don't know, like some of that play towards the end got me a little bit more nervous than it should be when it comes to that. So I was in full butt clench mode when it comes to that end of that game, because I felt like Western Michigan, they had a lot of late game heroics, not only even this year but last year too. So I was expecting another one to kind of pop in, but the Huskies were able to hang on and get a victory.
Yeah, it's that segment where they just kind of controlled play for I think like a solid 3 or so minutes, and then pulled their goalie with like 2.5. It was time for me to check my blood pressure in the booth as well, because I kind of saw it coming, if that makes any sense. I saw some hands on some sticks on knees, and I was like, all right, well, these guys are going to get tired, and if it's going to happen at some point. And I don't know if you remember it at all really last year, but do you remember when St. Cloud was in North Dakota for that Saturday game where North Dakota had like a solid 6 straight minutes of zone time?
Yep.
And I think that was the game St. Cloud won in a shootout or something. but it felt very reminiscent of that, where it just kept coming and coming and coming, and then St. Cloud would get a clear. Brett Larson would take a timeout, get the units changed, and then a face-off win or a bad bounce wouldn't go St. Cloud's way. But they say bend but don't break. St. Cloud didn't break. They stood strong, which is it's a big momentum boost for a defensive core that is solid when you have guys like Lidke, Anhorn, Peart. Everybody else is pretty much underclassmen except for Carl Falk. So those young guys, who I should say, by the way, have impressed me so much, those guys, the Ewerts, the excuse me, I can't think of his name, Warren Clark.
I thought this was Clark's best weekend.
Clark is a guy that they have very high hopes for. I mean, I would too. He's a Tampa Bay draft pick, and they have a pretty good history of defensemen. So I'm not gonna trash any of that. But yeah, Clark is going to be a guy that Brett Larson is going to play through his highs and lows just to learn.
As he should.
I think he
did with Peart as well.
I think he could have benefited from another year in juniors, but
because he went up 2 ranks essentially.
Yeah, but he's looked good in flashes. Like, you'll see him begin the escapade up the ice with the puck to break out, and you'll see him hit a tip-to-tape pass. You're like, oh, that was crisp. And then you'll see him fan on a pass, and then it turns the other way for a breakaway for Mankato, and they score to make it 3-1. So you giveth and you taketh. Yeah, it is kind of a Jack Peart freshman year situation where you saw flashes that Peart could facilitate play, and then you would see flashes where I wish he, could have marinated a little bit. But yeah, young defenseman also looked really good, at least on Friday as well.
So able to escape with that one. Saturday's game, obviously after that Friday game too, going into Western Michigan, happy with a win. I was thinking that everything more is going to be gravy. We talked a little bit about the hit, which was just an absolute dumb hit for that 5-minute major. I mean, Okabe's back was
numbers all the way.
No, yeah, it was about half ice. They were coming across and delivered that hit. So,
my favorite part about that was when they were viewing it, and then Colangelo left the box, and the crowd cheered, and then immediately booed when he left the ice.
Yeah, you don't get that skate of shame at the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center for the visiting team, because
they just turn around and leave.
Just turn around and leave. So Jason Bryant probably has a couple of words that he can probably say that probably hears on his way past, but
like a Chris Jandrick spearing situation.
Yeah. So we had so I mean, Okabe, got the hit. I think it was a couple of minutes earlier, though. He had a 2-on-1, and he just coasted in. And that's where it's just like, Okabe, I don't know where his confidence right now is when he handles the puck and when he's about to shoot it, because he's made some really nice passes. He had one pass, I think, against Miami that was a no-look.
Yeah.
Right on the tape. But it was just, I don't know if he's just lacking a little bit of confidence when it comes to shooting, but it's like he was undecisive even one stride before the blue line, and he didn't take another stride, and then he got caught by the back checker. So it was one of those things that was like, Okabe, buddy, what are you doing? We're this is the one last key, I think, to get really all of the cylinders kind of firing for this team. And it just, I don't know. It was kind of an alarming play that I've never seen him, never seen something like that happen from him.
I think, and I could tell it to him, to his face too, I think I'd be comfortable. I think he's kind of in his own head a little bit. I think
that's kind of what it feels like. Yeah.
I think he kind of, I'm trying to think of a series that really illustrates it. The Mankato series, he had, I think, a wide open 4x6, and I don't know if it was Tracy or Rancier. I think one of those goalies was hurt that weekend, and he got absolutely robbed by his blocker. And it just, I think that deflated him a little bit, because it feels like whenever they play Mankato, he always scores, because he's just that good of a hockey player against those guys. His first Remember, he had 4
And he
goals
scored
against
4
Mankato in one
against
game
them.
his freshman year. Yeah. The kid Okabe's a fantastic hockey player, and I still think when he gets one, he's going. And keep in mind, with that assist that he got on Saturday, he's 1 point away from number 100.
It's been the slowest climb to 100 points. I think what he started at 95, 96. What is he at?
Yeah, he started at 95.
95, I think, right? So
Viti's at 96 right now too.
Yeah. So we got 2 in the so if we were to do a prop bet right now, the way these 2 players are going, who do you think reaches 100 first?
Okabe reaches Friday. I'm very confident about it.
Ooh, all right. I like it. You heard that call here. So
Okabe, keep in mind, one of the last times these 2 teams played at the Herb in regular season, Okabe scored an overtime winner against Minnesota Duluth.
That's true.
He also he wakes up for these rivalry games. Remember that overtime winner against North Dakota at the X last year. He wakes up for those, and I'm convinced the moment that it goes, you'll see the weight come off of his shoulders, and I'm expecting him to have a 2 or 3 point night that night too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I can see that happening. So the Alpha scores about 5 minutes into or left in the first period on what was up until then an absolutely abysmal power play. Terrible.
Well, the one that they had earlier was the worst thing I'd ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it was just not able to get. And I think that's where that Western Michigan aggressiveness, because I thought they were really aggressive on the power play overall all weekend, or on the penalty kill. And I think that was still kind of getting to them, in the first penalty, and then the 5 minute as well. But obviously that's all essentially erased when you get that one power play goal with the shot for Veeti. So that was a little bit frustrating, because you go in and you're up 1-0, but you had 7 minutes of power play time and you only have 6 shots on goal. So it was just one of those things that was it just, I'm happy we're up, but we're just, everything isn't really clicking on all cylinders. And I think in that game too, Western had 3 or 4 post shots, if I'm trying to remember correctly, or maybe that was Friday's game. One of the games, it felt like they were ringing iron quite often.
Yeah, Friday they were hitting post after post after post.
Okay, that was Friday.
It felt like. And, Saturday was Saturday's what I would call more of a prototypical Brett Larson game, where most of his offense is when you wait back and wait for somebody to make a mistake and then kill somebody in transition, that kind of thing. Although the Ashawn goal was, I don't really know how to explain it. It was, I don't know, a good goal. It was right in front, and you got to stick on it. So
you got that tip. I mean, you had right when you saw, also you had Warren Clark with that lane too, and right away you're like, fire it. You got a lane there. You got a Sean in front too, providing a screen. And then it was Ewert as well with the assist. So that was, I believe, his first point.
He got him on the Brett Larson show with Jim Erickson at the Green Mill on Monday.
Yeah. So with that, it still felt like Western Michigan had a little bit better the play. We had a power play there towards the end of the second. Just a couple minutes later, that just expires, and then Molinar, like we talked about, had just a very easy tap in to make it 3-0. And escaping, even escaping may be a little bit too harsh, but because that's a tough place to play against a very good team. But getting those 6 points, I mean, that's going to be huge when it comes to where we're at in the standings right now, and where those points are going to be. So I don't know. So right now, I'm kind of mixed. Obviously I'm happy with the 6. I think we could have played a little bit better at times, but we converted on our chances. Western Michigan didn't. I thought Bassie played, definitely well on Saturday. So overall, it's I don't know. I was overall, I'm happy with the results, and I still think that since we're getting points when these weekends still where we're not pulling our full potential, I think that's massive that we're still getting these points when we're still kind of, I don't know, running in quicksand, I guess, so to speak. So I think that's a sign of a good team that once everything starts clicking, watch out.
Yeah, this is statistically, this is the first time St. Cloud State has swept the first two weekends of NCHC play since the 2018-19 year, which you'll recall, I believe, was the year St. Cloud State lost in the first. It was either no, that wasn't the first round. It was the year they lost to Duluth in the one of the greatest games ever played in conference history. I think that was that year.
No, that game sucked. I don't want to talk about it.
I wasn't here, but I've heard very good stories just about how good of a hockey game that in total was.
Oh no, the Duluth fans that were sitting next to me, but it was. I mean, yeah, the game itself was incredibly good, but it was just annoying that it didn't go St. Cloud's way. Nor did the next week go St. Cloud's way,
or the week after, really. Any after that was it AIC that year? Was that season? I think, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, the Air Force and AIC kind of blend with me because I wasn't following the team. Air Force was when Motzko left, and then AIC was Larson's first year.
Yep, correct.
Yeah. Okay. What I thought. Yeah, this it was really hard for me to gauge, where this team would be at coming into this weekend series. All along, no matter what, even if this team started off, 8-0 coming into Western Michigan, I wasn't expecting them to win either of the games just because they had never, played well here in the last however many years since Robbie Jackson did the Patrick Kane heartbreak celly to the Lawson Lunatics. So, this. If you would have asked me, after the Mankato series, if I'd expect this team to, sweep Miami and all, I would have been like, I don't know. But now it's coming out that Miami's they are what we thought they were. So although their win over Arizona State helps our pairwise a lot.
Yeah,
because of Arizona State beating Denver. So
just this
that helps our pairwise a lot.
Yeah, that circle of college hockey, just you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, especially this year.
Last thing I kind of want to touch on when it comes to this series, before we head over to previewing Duluth, just what are your thoughts on linesmen and lack of ability to drop the puck? Because I felt it was absolutely on full force this weekend.
This weekend was the worst I'd seen it this year. I thought, for the most part, I haven't had an issue with them dropping the puck this year. I thought it's been better than it was last year. This weekend, it was just, I don't know. You probably weren't listening to me that much, but actually, you replied.
You guys are ahead of the NCHC stream.
I apologize.
So put it a little delay. You got to get like a 20-second delay on your streams.
Yeah. Well,
or at least able to have us pause and then hit play and catch up right there instead of going live.
You know what? I'll talk to our Jim Gray, not the goalie, to see if we can set that up. So,
thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I haven't really had that much of an issue with officiating so far this year as I have had in years past. Do I think some majors should have been called? Yeah. Do I think some penalties should have been called? Yeah, but that's just hockey. So I'm not going to get in my soapbox and, talk about how the entire world of refereeing needs reform because, these guys have a very hard job and it's kind of hard to, follow everything that's happening on the sheet of ice. So.
Well, and then not only that, nobody wants to do it. So it's like, it's one of those things. It's like, oh, we should get better refs. It's like, okay, like, where are they? I mean, it's an easy, like, so.
Trust me, Tom Stearns would have retired long ago if there wasn't a referee shortage.
So, but pivoting over to Minnesota Duluth. Now, when you're kind of look it over, you're prepping for calling the game. Are you on the play-by-play this weekend, or are you?
Yep.
Okay. Because I know you guys.
My first play-by-play series since Alaska.
Ooh, there you go. So hopefully,
and that was a fun one.
So kind of when you're going through and kind of preparing, what do you kind of look at first? What do you look at for this team, or what do you what do you go into preparing for a weekend for calling on radio?
I kind of funnel it out, if that makes any sense. I like to start with goalies, then go to defensemen, then go to forwards for when I'm getting ready. So the first thing I'm going to look at when I prep this week is I'm going to look at Thiessen. And as far as I've heard, as far as I've known, as far as I've seen, Thiessen's really the only reason this Duluth team is even in these games that they're playing, close. And they're 5-1 in their last 6, but he's the only reason that they've really been in those games in total. He has been absolutely phenomenal for them. St. Cloud really didn't see him that much. I saw him in that Saturday game, the last regular season game of the year, and then they saw Stay School for the playoffs, if I remember correctly. But he's a burly goaltender. He's kind of he covers up a lot of the net, but he can make these, to quote the Dallas Stars color guy, these mastodonic saves where he'll be way out of play, and then all of a sudden, he's kind of like Ryan Fanti. Like, he'll be out of a play, and then all of a sudden you see a glove reach out and the puck's in it. So it's weird, in terms of goaltending, because I'm assuming he'll play both games this weekend, especially if Stay School is still injured and can't go, which we'll probably find out game time. Or I could listen to Bruce's radio show if I wanted to, but I don't really have the time. That's like the most solidified place of their team that I can think of, and then I look at the defense core. So, you had something to say?
Yeah, one of my favorite things. I don't know. I don't know if you're too young to remember Harambe, but
it's 2016. Yeah,
but one of my favorites was somebody in the dog pound. I can't remember if it was the dog pound or the puppy pound, but they held up a sign that says Bruce Siskey killed Harambe. So every time I hear Bruce Siskey's name, I think of that sign. I wish I could find a picture of that sign. It was pretty funny. I think Bruce got a kick out of it too.
Yeah, Bruce gets a kick out of it. I'm excited to talk to him about my Cubs poaching his Brewers manager when I see him on Friday. So big fan of Craig Counsell. So yeah, their defense as well is a bit odd because they lost Kaiser, and that's going to be your biggest, guy in terms of, notability or notoriety, excuse me. So once again, I haven't gone into my deep dive yet. I don't do that until like Thursday. So
sure.
I start prep usually today or tomorrow. So
yeah. Because when I think of their defensemen, Gelatinen is the guy that I feel like I hear him. I don't know why his name. Maybe it's his name that just sticks out as much, so I just hear it. Or he's just always on the ice. Oh, Gallatin, yeah.
Owen. Yeah, I sorry, I was like the Thanksgiving fruit thing.
I said that because of Dan Jacobson posted the meme of that's a Padlin, so I always read it as that's the gelatinin. Anyway, it's yeah, so that's how I always say it in my head. But yeah, and then obviously Steves and Lowhite, I feel like are all like those are just forces when it comes to their offense. So just having this team on an 0-5-1 stretch, it feels, and we're on a 4-0 stretch. I don't know. Like, I want to be incredibly optimistic about this weekend, but this just feels like one of those weekends where like just Minnesota Duluth ends up righting the ship this weekend magically, and then we kind of have a little bit of a stutter. And I hope that's not the case, but I don't know. I feel like St. Cloud's going to be a little bit of trouble this weekend.
I tend to agree with you in terms of, this kind of feels like a trap series. But I also raised to you that we were saying all of last year that, just wait, Duluth will turn it around.
That's true.
And it never happened. And I don't know if that's just a coaching thing. I don't know if that's, the players aren't getting up and ready to play. I do think this team misses Dominic James a lot more than Scott Sandelin is going to be willing to admit.
Sure.
Because that's your first line, forward. That's the heart of your lineup right there. He wins draws for you, which is going to be very key this weekend against a team in St. Cloud who is, well, after Kalamazoo, I was going to say very good, but they're a good team in the faceoff dot.
What was it, Friday? I blame the linesmen because they don't know how to drop a puck.
Larson actually talked about that in a bit of his post game. He said the numbers will show that that Western Michigan won a lot of those draws, but he says that he liked it because it felt like an auto loss where they could just immediately pin the puck up along the boards and then just win possession back. So he's not a big stat sheet guy unless it comes to block shots. So I fully respect that of him. So
I see that.
It's just this Duluth team. Duluth and St. Cloud always play good games against each other. There's never any blowouts unless St. Cloud is just, really reeling like they were last year when they were coming off of losing Dylan Anhorn. It was your first series without him. And, you could see it when they were in Duluth. They just never really got it going. So this feels like it'll just be solid back and forth, bruising, just slugging hockey back and forth this weekend. And personally, that's my favorite kind of hockey to call because there's not really a lot of open ice for me and I can't really extend my voice that far. So I thoroughly enjoy when these two teams play together. And this St. Cloud team didn't lose to Duluth at home last year except once in the playoffs. So they were 4-1. They were 4-1 against Duluth at home last year. So that one was a 5-1 loss, right? Yeah, it was the game where it was the game where it was Bassey's last game of the year because then Castor came in for that Saturday game, made that first scorpion save in the first 30 seconds. Then from there, he was basically the reincarnation of Marty Brodeur.
Yeah.
So
that's right. I got an idea, something that I've been pondering. Let me know what you think of this. As they say on the Common Man, let me know if I'm either on something or onto something. Now, first and foremost, Brett Larson is not going to do this. So I don't expect it to happen.
I'll bring it up to him at practice tomorrow.
Perfect. What do you think about flipping Okabe and Rogers? If you put Rogers on with the Miettinen line and you put Okabe with Hall and Ingram to try to get him a little bit of confidence and try to get him a little bit more open ice, because I think Hall is going to get a lot of attention here this weekend.
Halsey will definitely get a lot of attention. I hesitate to say yes because I think Nick Ports needs a spot to play this weekend.
That's, you had a question and, usually we do questions a little bit later, but let's get into it now. Because you had a question that I was going to talk to Andrew about our the greaser line. So when we had with Ashawn Gross and Ryman in there, I was really impressed with how they played. And
so was Coach.
Yeah, I really liked their determination. I don't exactly know what type of player Ryman is quite yet. So I'm excited to see him kind of evolve. I was really surprised not to see Ports there on Saturday.
To answer your first question, Ryman's basically Aiden Spellacy, and is all I can really say to you. He'll just be like him.
Right.
So that line, I'll bring it to the point A. That line, that Ashawn Gross Ryman line, was only put together for the Miami series because Mason Salquist was hurt coming into the series, and they weren't sure he would be able to play. They brought him in just because they announced the line charts. They brought him in just in case because Ryman and Gross are both centers. Mm-hmm. They were just talking about, okay, well, worst comes to worst, if Salquist can't go after warm-ups, we can just, slide everything up. And then they looked really good together. Yeah. And after that, Coach Larson was just like, all right, we are fitting these guys. They have been playing well, and they've been playing well ever since they got put together. So it's good on them for making it hard to take them out of the lineup.
Yeah, because that was the first game against Miami because Ports played in the second game.
Yep.
And so they went back to him for both of the Western Michigan. So yeah, I don't know where Ports kind of fits into this right now. That's a tough question for coach.
Yeah, and I would say that I think that Ports will eventually probably just take one of Ryman, or probably just Ryman's spot because he's a right winger, so it wouldn't shock me. But right now it's Jack Rogers and Nick Ports battling for who wants to play, and Nick Ports is a guy that was kind of buried in lineups at North Dakota. He came here looking for an opportunity. He's gotten opportunities. He's looked good when he's been out there on the ice. It also, the only reason I think he didn't play last weekend is because Jack Rogers had 2 points in game 1, and that makes it very difficult for a guy to take a guy out of a lineup in that kind of position. I'm expecting to see Ports this weekend. I would be shocked if we didn't, but I'm assuming they keep that Sean Gross Ryman line together along with. Oh God, who's Rogers with? Hall and Ingram. So,
yep.
I mean, I would like to see it because Ingram and Okabe kind of play power play minutes together sometimes, so there's some chemistry there. But Okabe and Veeti have played together their entire careers.
That's true.
And you're not going to get any better chemistry than that. And
I'm pretty sure that Okabe can probably speak Finnish by now. I mean,
he does.
He does. Pick up.
Him and Cronulla had a really good soundbite last year where it was against North Dakota at home. It was the goal where he came up to the North Dakota fan and shushed them after he scored. And him and Okabe talk to each other in Finnish when they're skating down the ice, just because there's like a couple of like words that he knows, and there's one word that Okabe knows for certain that means put the puck on net, like off the pad for a rebound, and he did it, and Cronulla immediately tapped it in for a goal. Oh. So Okabe knows a little bit. I wouldn't say he's fluent yet, but Okabe knows a little bit of Finland's native tongue.
Oh. Yeah.
But I wouldn't expect Okabe to move. Especially, he got an assist on Saturday, which by all means it could have opened the floodgates. I guess we'll have to wait and find out until Friday.
We'll find out on Friday because I think once he gets back on track, it's going to be scary how this team looks. So, anything else kind of about Minnesota Duluth? Or anything really around college hockey that kind of piqued your interest. Right now, I'm looking at Maine. They've been, they've been kind of the darlings there of Hockey East right now, surprising, Boston College and whatnot. So that was surprising. He had a good series against, between the Gophers and Michigan, who we'll see Michigan coming up soon. So that was kind of a heavy tilt. Yeah. So
that'll be
anything else kind of piqued your interest around college hockey?
One thing I do want to touch on before we move on to other stuff. Women's hockey, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Women's hockey is at St. Thomas on Friday. That game will be on 97.5 Radio X if you're looking for any listening pleasure. It'll also be on Big Ten Plus. Yeah, as it usually is for WCHA games. If you have that pass, I do. It's fun. And then they're
great
also
value,
at home.
Too.
Yeah, they do a great job. And
$60 for men's and women's games. And
exactly.
I mean, I got it too soon. If I would have waited a week, I could have got it for $30 because they had a flash sale. But I mean, when you look at every other streaming service and how much they charge, definitely the Big Ten's the best bang for your buck.
Yeah,
especially because you'll also get Minnesota Michigan series, which I know ticked off a lot of people that wasn't on the Big Ten network.
Well, basketball always takes precedent. So, but that game will be on 97.5 Radio X on Friday at 6:00 puck drop. Saturday, we're doing a Husky hockey doubleheader on KVSC with the women's game starting at 1:00. And the men's game will, of course, start at 6:00. But pregame for the men's game will start at 5:30. We have some syndicated programming that we have to play from 12 to 12:45 or so on their station. So the pregame for the women's game will be a little bit shorter. But yeah, it's I'm really excited, specifically as a sports director, to give our women's team the coverage that they specifically deserve, because the turnaround that they've had these past couple of years has been phenomenal, and the people that want to cover it for our station are also very plentiful as well. Max Steigoff and Zach Chapman, who you heard last weekend on the call for KVSC for men's hockey, do an incredible job with that squad. So big shout out to them. So
Awesome.
That'll also be fun. And then we may have something planned specifically KVSC oriented for Hockey Day Minnesota when that rolls around. So stay tuned for that.
Ooh, a little teaser. I like it. So yeah, let's talk about the women. Women who were off last week. WCHA as a conference took it off. They had the USA Canada rivalry series. They had a game down in Arizona and I believe California.
They had a game where the that wasn't the Staples Center, but like their Ontario, California. I think. I don't know. Giselle was there. She'd probably have a better idea. Wherever the Reign affiliate is.
So it was Team USA takes both games. I'd be a little bit more excited if they didn't take the both games last year before ended up losing the rivalry series to Canada. But hopefully they're able to kind of close the door and finish this out. But fun series, and God, I absolutely love watching women's hockey too. So they do have one game at the X in February. Thinking about maybe going to that. So, but I think the off week kind of comes at a good time. It was a tough weekend against Wisconsin, where they played a lot better than what the score sheets indicated.
They moved up in the poll.
They moved up in the polls after getting swept, which you don't often see, if ever. But what's even crazier is that you could look at that and be like, yeah, you can make a point for that. I mean, Wisconsin is incredibly good and incredibly deep. So,
yeah.
But they got St. Thomas. St. Thomas played on last Thursday against Mankato in the Hall of Fame game.
Hall of Fame.
So it was so technically it was a non-conference victory since that was an extra game.
I think is let me understand, which I think is stupid, by the way. I said it last year when St. Cloud was playing the Gophers in that series. I think that's the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense.
That'd be like pulling I'm trying to think of anything like.
I don't know.
I don't know. That'd be
St. Cloud, North Dakota playing in a game and just for one game, and it's like doesn't count for anything in the standings.
Yeah. It's like grabbing the Golden Knights and Rangers in the middle of like January and saying, "Oh yeah, you guys are going to go to Sweden and play an exhibition against each other." No.
So, but St. Thomas, who did win, still searching this year for their first conference win. So I am looking for the Huskies to really, hopefully get healthy first and foremost. Grace Wolf, I saw her on crutches, but she was putting weight on the foots, and she wasn't in a cast or anything. And she was really nice, by the way, because she was interacting with Clara. Clara would walk up and say hi to her and run away. I can't imagine anyone's listening who plays on the women's team, but just know that a lot of the women's team, the players that were scratched, that were kind of sitting in the corner and were really wonderful with my kids whenever they would kind of run around and just be, I try to be kind of out, under, behind the goal, away from everybody, to let them kind of burn off some energy and whatnot. But yeah, they were really nice.
They're coming for your job. JoJo and Avery Myers just started a podcast. So.
Oh, did they? I'll go ahead and definitely listen to that.
Let me. I can pull up the name of it so I can give them a quick shout out real quick. I saw them today, so shout out to Avery and JoJo.
It's always awkward when I make a little bit of an aside or I didn't know that they were fully going with the goaltending rotation where it was going to be a whole of JoJo back and forth. And then JoJo got the start after, again, another one of Ahola's shutouts earlier in the year. And I was like, oh, that's a real surprise. And then she wins. And then JoJo liked that tweet. So I was like, oh, yep. You caught me there. Caught me red-handed on that one.
I can't find it. They haven't posted on their Instagrams in like 2 days. It's 2 seconds.
So
I'll find it, I promise.
Well, we'll make sure to let that out once we know what it is. But as far as St. Thomas goes, it's, they started out the season 4-0, but it's, Franklin, Pearson, Lindenwood. And then they ran that WCHA gauntlet that comes for everybody: Minnesota, Ohio State, Wisconsin, in back-to-back weeks, and then Minnesota, Duluth, and dropped all of those. So these are the series where if the Huskies really want to prove that they're going to be in the top half of the WCHA, this is the series that we need to get these 6 points out of. So that's kind of the key aspects when it comes to these series. Just take care of business. I think Adelsky is going to have that. I think the bye comes at a right time to get everybody a little healthy. Only playing 5 defense against Wisconsin. And I know Harvey was out for Wisconsin, which was a big hit to them as well, but they're just too deep and too good. So I hope the bye, I think it came at a right time for them.
Yeah, you got to get healthy. That means it would probably be 2 for 2 in teams that have had the bye go the correct way for St. Cloud, with the men's team getting their bye and then sweeping 2 series in a row, and hopefully the women's getting a bye and then hopefully sweeping 2 series in a row. But I've always been high on this women's team. Even before this season, I was like, they're going to be a top 10 team in this country at some point, and I had just been waiting for it, and I was waiting for it. The first poll came out, and they were like 14th. I was like, okay, that makes sense, at least a little bit. So it's so hard to gauge this team, because they put up a really good performance against Wisconsin. They barely had anybody that was good enough or like healthy enough to play at that point.
Yeah.
And that defense, I think they dressed 5 defensemen. Clara was banged up that entire Saturday game. So
and she was on defense too. I mean, so that's one of your somebody who normally doesn't play defense on defense, who's also, banged up and whatnot. So it's take care of business here this weekend, because right after that you got Ohio. You're at Ohio State. You got the lone Tuesday game against Minnesota, and then you got 2 games against Minnesota, Duluth. So this is where points are really at a premium here. So if you want to be in that top 4 of the WCHA, this is this is kind of a pivotal time for that. Obviously, looking at the schedule, though, the big one, Wisconsin, Ohio State. I mean, that's going to be just a slugfest this weekend. So I'm going to be looking forward to having that also on in the background.
Yeah, those this is where the big boys play. So I'm expecting them to put up good competition against most of these, if not all of the top teams in the WCHA, because they've proven that they can do it in the past. I'm not going to go out and flat out say that I think they're going to, steal points from all of them. There's going to be series that are just going to be tough, and you're not going to be able to do a lot. But once again, I've said that I think this team can finish 4th in this conference, and I still stand by that. I think their floor is finishing 5th, but I think I said on our preview podcast that I think if they finish 5th, I think they win a playoff series. So and it's also no question that this team also plays better on the short ice, which is, or on the smaller ice, excuse me, which is, it's one of the pleasures for the men's team and one of the weaknesses for the women's team. But with what Mick is reporting of them maybe shrinking it by 3 or so feet, maybe we don't have to worry about it as much to an extent anymore.
3 feet. I don't know. I just I get it. I get shrinking it and all, but I don't know. My whole point was, because I got a little flack on Twitter about it too. It's my whole thought is 3 is just an odd number, or it's just like for human psyche wise, like 5 feet makes sense. Like just it's divisible by like that's why like 3 is just a weird number. And like to even call that's not even dad bod ice at that point. That's like you had a good week of cardio ice where all of a sudden you look and you're like, hey, I lost 10 pounds. And then you eat a Cinnabon later and then all of a sudden it comes back. So,
you don't really realize how big the ice is when you're in the press box until you sit down on the level that the ice is. Like I like stood like with the Zamboni doors open at the ice once, and I just looked left to right. I felt like I was looking at like across a freeway.
Yeah,
that it is massive.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm a proponent of shrinking it. I understand that the money wise things that you're not going to get a lot of, what's what I'm looking for, facility like additions / I don't know.
Well, it's that, and I mean the sight lines too. I mean, even you look at Mariucci, and they didn't even shrink it down all the way, and their sight lines still looked a little bit wonky when it comes to lower levels. So,
well, if you ask Gopher Puck Live, St. Cloud State University is not going to exist in 5 years. So I don't.
God, don't get me started with that.
God.
I was like, why anybody trusts anything when it comes to Husky hockey? Like, when their fan base is on somebody else, it's like, don't even get me started. I almost got into that also with Alex Micheletti too, when he was talking about Garuba and how St. Cloud switched course or whatnot.
Don't
and I'm
interact
just like,
with
like come on.
He's a character.
Well, I don't trust any Micheletti when it comes to Husky hockey, so that's actually just kind of a good rule of thumb.
I will say Pat Micheletti was very nice to me in my few interactions I've had with him, and he also got very upset when Perbix was hauled down against the Gophers. So maybe he's an inside agent. He's garnering information.
Well. Yeah, I don't know about that, but
also enrollment is up 7.7% this year, by the way, in case anybody was wondering.
Just
anyway,
back to the fish story,
the infamous fish story.
We have you actually asked a question, favorite UMD memory, and I've actually got one that has a little bit of a story attached to it. I
don't really have any, so.
Back in my college day, an 07, I think, playoff series, I was a night supervisor at Shoemaker. So I worked the I worked the 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. shift the Sunday to Monday. And Sunday night, 7:00 game was against Minnesota Duluth. And sure enough, that game ends up going into 3 overtimes. So I call my boss after the second overtime, and I just call, and she answers the phone. Hi, Travis, where are you at right now? And I said, I'm at the hockey game. She's like, are you going to be in late to work today? Yes. Yep, that's okay. I'll cover for you, because I mean she was watching the game anyway, so she was able to cover. And the good thing is that Shoemaker is just right there, so it's not like I had that far to go before. I was tired that shift, that's for sure. But
did they win?
They did win. Andreas Nodal with the game-winning goal in the third overtime from Casey Borer. If we got let's do a random box score. Shots were 69-65 this game.
Nice.
So like you get into 3 overtimes, you think everyone's going to be dead tired. Nope. They were still firing the puck at that time. First period, lash from Radens and Chronic. If it's a game against Duluth, Dan Chronic was going to score. Dan Chronic was just a transfer from the Bulldogs to St. Cloud State, and pretty much only scored against the Bulldogs. was kind of his.
It's like Van de Velde against St. Cloud.
Yeah. Brian McGregor from Matt Niskanen and Mason Raymond tied it up. Nick Kemp and Ryan Jarris on the, who are those two? Don't remember either. McGregor was a heck of a player for Duluth. Kemp and Jarris, don't remember either of them. Johnny Swanson in the third period ends up tying it 2-2, and then 2 overtimes to nothing. And then halfway through the third overtime, Nodal puts it in. And then we were able to go to the X, which I think we lost. I think we lost both games at the Final Five and then lost to Maine that year. So that was the last win of the season for the Huskies. A couple years later, we played in Duluth and we had another 3 overtime game in that series. And in the end, Minnesota Duluth ended up winning, shortly into the third overtime with Connolly scoring from Henderson and Fontaine, and I believe they went on to win the national title. So
was that Brett Connolly?
Mike.
Okay, I thought it was the one that played for the Capitals.
No, they had Mike, and Jack Connolly was on the same line with Justin Fontaine.
Huh. Yeah, my best St. Cloud State UMD memory. Ending their season last year. I don't.
Hey, that's a good one. I like that memory too.
I'm knocking on wood right now. By the way, I haven't called a game where St. Cloud lost to Duluth yet on play-by-play.
Hey, there we go.
I'll take it.
Dan Jacobson, a friend of the show and avid Minnesota Duluth fan, asked, "Can the hockey season be over yet?"
No.
Go Huskies Woo. I also had kind of a good banter about, kind of this is the inevitable weekend where they turn this and make a run at the Natty, because that's how things happen sometimes against Duluth. So, my friend Donna asks, why did you complain so much about a sweep? And I guess that's fair. Looking at my tweets, they were a little bit harsher than maybe how we played, but that's just kind of how I felt about the games, Western Michigan, as I played. But
it was. I mean, I wouldn't say the Huskies played their best hockey last weekend, and I'm sure they know that. So I'm gonna tend to agree with you that I'll always be happy about it sweep no matter how it happens. But yeah.
Especially in this league.
Yeah, I'll live with. I will, if St. Cloud won every game 1-0. I might need a heart transplant, but I'd be happy.
As long as we can clear the zone, I don't care how we win. Jody and Kathy Anhorn. A quick look at most of the stats this year versus last year. Very similar metrics. Shots taken versus against are slightly improved, with goals against being the same, but we're tracking fewer number goals for. What's your opinion on this team's scoring potential this year versus last year? First off, that is way more in depth when it comes to stats than I normally do on this podcast. So thank you for that. But the big thing that I look at is you look at who we lost last year, and every team can kind of play that game of who we lose last year and where our scoring was. But not only was it Cronulla and Crookshank, but it was 2 experienced centers. And I think the biggest thing is that, and I've said it since the beginning of the season and the previews and everything, is depth down the middle is incredibly key in hockey. And I think that we're still kind of trying to figure that out with some of our players. I mean, right at the beginning, we started with Ingram at center. Then we, end up moving him to wing and Hall at center. So I think it's just kind of one of those situations that the center really, kind of drives some of that possession battle and really opens up some lanes. And when you have them like Cronulla and Crookshank, who are so pivotal, I think that's kind of the big difference and the big key when it comes to it.
Yeah. Coach Larson talks a lot about, he talked way earlier this year about for this team to be as good, if not better, as they were last year, you're going to need those unknown guys to score. Like you're going to need he's actually coined, the guy that he wasn't expecting to do a lot, in terms of scoring, the Crookshank guy, the guy that you'll come in expecting, for 10 goals out of the transfer portal or out of nowhere, and he'll score 20 for you. Mm-hmm. Right now, it's looking like Joe Molinar's that kind of player. Sure. He is he already has more goals this season than I think he did his entire career combined coming into this season. I will say personally, I gave him a lot of flack last year. I don't think it was all deserved. I think I was just more looking for somebody to blame, and I will be the first one to say that. He has kind of surpassed my expectations as to, what I thought his ceiling was. I thought at most he was a third line right winger. And he is playing first line minutes for St. Cloud State right now. And he is scoring whenever, when it's important. He's finding, guys in open passing lanes. He's playing power play minutes right now. And this has been a guy that St. Cloud, was high on when they got him, as a recruit out of Minnetonka and, Tri-City. This guy was a line mate with Matthew Nyes in Tri-City. So Huskies were very high on him. So I wasn't expecting him to do a lot this year, but, he's surpassed my expectations. He's looked really good. His shot is there. And if you'll allow me to pull up my line chart from the other night so I can remember who else I wanted to talk about. Sorry about that. My phone is being stupid. You look at guys like, Veeti Miettinen coming out of nowhere and scoring when he needs to. He's looked really good for St. Cloud State. You talk about this depth down the middle. This guy's playing second line center as a freshman, and he
doesn't look out of
really
place at all.
Doing
he looks so good. Yep.
He looks phenomenal right now for St. Cloud State. You mentioned Barrett Hall, who's playing center, and Adam Ingram has slid over to left wing. I've liked that move so far. Hall is winning draws. Ingram is still Adam Ingram. He has one of the best shots in the NCHC. Barrett Hall has been very good this year. I mentioned him as probably my leading scorer out of the freshmen when we did our preview podcast as well.
I did.
And then
my Grace Delmonico pick doesn't look too good right now, as she hasn't seen the ice, but she'll turn it around.
At one point in her career, I promise you, she will impress you. Then you look at that down the defense. You look at guys like Dylan Anhorn, who we were expecting to be really good this year. It took him a while to find himself. You mentioned you talk about earlier this year he didn't look like he was back to 100%, still trying to get back to game speed. Now he looks like the Hobie Baker candidate that we've been waiting for him to be since he got hurt. He looks like he's facilitating play. He slows the game down. It feels like he's playing in slow motion whenever he has the puck and he's bringing it up the ice. And he's at his best when he's facing adversity. That Kalamazoo student section was giving him all of the crap in the world, and he was smiling through every single bit of it. And it's really nice to see him go. And then you look at guys like Josh Litke. Litke has 4 points already this year. He's been really good. I know he missed a prolonged period last year because of that head injury he sustained in game one. But he's looked really good. That one goal that he scored, was it bad? You got to make that save if you're Bruno Berveris. Jack Peart. Peart looks. I know you guys give him a lot of flack on here sometimes as well, just for not developing as quickly as we wanted him to. He's looked really good this year.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. Yeah, he's looked good at times. Yeah, I'm scared. But yeah, with the way he plays, you buy the ticket, you ride the ride, so to speak. So it's you'll have kind of those moments, you'll have those flashes. But yeah, I mean, with that as well, I mean, we'll talk about when we talked about Warren Clark earlier, how they're going to play him because you see what type of upside he has. Peart was like that his freshman year, where he was slower to develop, but also the type of game that he plays. Maybe it was unfair because we were just off of Jack Ashan, who was probably the best at that St. Cloud has ever seen. So maybe it was a little bit unfair for me to just kind of plug and play and expect that from a freshman. So, but yeah, I mean, both of them are Peart is getting, I'm getting a little bit more comfortable with them every week. Except every once in a while, but once a game, he'll still have a play that I'm like, ooh, that was, but you get that when he generates offensive chances. So.
And the good thing, I say good thing for him, but good thing for us is if he keeps having those moments, maybe Billy Guerin will let him play another year at college before he turns pro, which I would thoroughly enjoy. So
exactly.
I think guys like Lidke, guys like Peart, I'd say those are your two options for captain next year for St. Cloud State. Lidke is already wearing an A his junior year, so I think if I had to put like $100 down, I think Lidke's going to be wearing the C next year. That team respects the hell out of him, and I do too. He's one of the nicest kids I've ever met. And then it all ends with your goaltender. And Dominic Bassi has, for all that he's shown, hasn't shown, he's been a solid goaltender. He hasn't, the only, I'd say, bad game that he has had was probably against St. Thomas, that first game. I know that he got pulled against Mankato, but his team was not playing good at all in front of him on that game.
Yeah,
and
I agree with.
And, for the Huskies to win games, Bassie's going to have to steal some games. Remember that Friday game against Western Michigan last week? That they had 2 seconds left, and they had the puck right there on the near side post. And Bassie, with his glove off, puts his hand on top of the puck. Off.
Yeah.
I
mean, the NCHC TV must have been off on the counter, because when I saw even the hint of the ref about to blow the whistle, I looked and it was like 0.4 left, and then they added 2 and at 0.3 on. I'm like, whoa, that's a lot.
I had it pulled up because we don't get monitors there, so I had it pulled up on my computer so I could go back and see what happened, so I could describe plays because I was doing color. And I looked at it at most I think they can put 1.4 seconds on the clock. And then it happened, and I'm like, well, if this happens right now, I'm going to be a little upset. But yeah.
Well, especially because of how the Minnesota St. Cloud game for the women's side, where we make it 2-1, and we have a center ice, with seconds left, and we were able to even get a scoring chance off that. And Larova was able to create that from center ice. So I'm still having this kind of flashback. I was like, okay, let's finish it off here. But
and I think Bassie is a very good goaltender. I think he's top. He's one of the best in the conference. That's for true. I think Thiessen, Pearson, and Barrico Bassi are probably in my top 5 of goalies in this conference right now. And I know Ludwig Pearson gets a lot of respect because he plays for North Dakota and he's a transfer and he was good at Miami, but he's a good goaltender. And Barrico hasn't been great this year, but in terms of talent wise, that's fine. Coach Larson and the guys call Dominic Bassi Big Smooth, because even when he's given up goals, his emotion does not change whatsoever. He always has the same blank facial expression, which, goalies are psychotic. That's pretty well documented. So
that's true.
when he is on, you can tell. Like I said earlier, he just needs to face a couple of shots early for him to, fully settle in. And he has a shutout. He has 3 shutouts this year, 6 in his career, by the way. Already has 3. And he, 2 straight Saturdays with a shutout for him, and he's looked, at least these past 2 weeks on this 4-game winning streak, like the goalie that we saw battling with Jackson Castor for the starting job last year. And then you look at guys down that goalie as well. You see Isaac Posh, who looked really good in the game that he played in relief against Mankato. Posh looked solid there. I don't want to get speculation, but I think he's going to be the guy next season. I think he's going to be a sophomore starting goaltender. I like Jimmy Gray a lot. I think he's a very good goaltender. It's just he got hurt at the wrong time, and that sometimes that just happens. And Jimmy will be a very good goaltender no matter what situation he is in. I'd imagine he probably not. And once again, Jimmy, if you're listening to this is not a knock on you whatsoever. I just think right now he will probably, especially with how Posh has been playing, and Brett Larson's affinity and the coaching staff's affinity for European goaltenders. I'm assuming Posh will get the starting nod next season. It wouldn't shock me at all if we see Posh this weekend. Bassi has played 10 games. And I know every point matters in this conference, but St. Cloud State can get swept this weekend and still be first in the conference. And I know you don't really want to talk about that at all, but it wouldn't shock me at all if Posh gets a nod, and I would be personally I'd be for it. So.
I mean, at the beginning of the year, I was a fan of a goalie tandem in general, because I just have a little bit of PTSD after Rennick going down with pneumonia and then like you do need to play these games, and I don't really buy into the narrative of, oh, it's the backup goaltender, you're disrespecting the other team, which some people actually have that type, and it's like you got to give people rest sometimes.
The only thing that I've seen like this year that like really makes me upset about backup goaltenders, Miami threw Bruveris out there for Saturday's game 2 against St. Cloud State. He was a healthy scratch last weekend. I don't know what Bergeron was thinking doing that. I don't know if Bruveris' confidence took a massive hit, which I feel bad for the guy personally because like he got thrown to the wolves, man, or thrown to the Huskies, I guess technically. But I feel so bad for him. And Posh is a very good goaltender, by the way. He put up great numbers in the NAHL. He didn't have a good season in the USHL the year prior, but Jackson Castor didn't see a lot of USHL time, and look how he ended up here. Dominic Bassi was a decent goaltender at Youngstown, but I mean, he got beat out for a job by Matt Vernon, and now he was a Richter candidate for 3/4 of the year last year. So you find your goalies wherever you're going to find them, and you just got to play them. And I would be personally, I'd like to see more of Posh because I think he's very, very stoic and calm in the crease, just like Bassi. And, the tutelage that Dominic brings to that position as well is going to help Posh in the long run. And I think Posh just needs to see some experience.
Yeah, I just feel you need to get some of these games under the belt for some of these players, and I think Larson knows that as well.
Yeah, it was just really easy for him last year because he could throw out any given day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I feel confident we can win this game. But the year
and
prior,
really, out of anybody, Adolski has the easiest job because you just fall into the rotation of Ahola and Cholback, and it doesn't matter because you've got probably a 1-2 combination of the best goaltenders in the WCHA.
And
because that's where Wisconsin's really weak too. Because I wasn't really impressed with their goalie, but
neither was I, and I stood behind them for 2 periods. But and Ahola's back next year too, by the way. So I'm expecting her and Paige Hugendam is the freshman tender that's scratched most of the time because in women's hockey you're not allowed to dress 3 goalies for some reason. So that'll be a fun thing to watch. But yeah, I'd expect Posh to get a look here.
Her name is Hugendam?
Yeah, Paige Hugendam.
That's awesome. Love it.
Yeah, she's a good goalie. So, but yeah, goaltending is very weird because you don't exactly need a great goaltender to be, a world beater in college hockey. Like look at Peretz was not good for Quinnipiac in the national tournament last year, and they won the dang thing. So yeah.
Well, I mean, Motzko going into a shell for the Gophers was a dumb idea.
Yeah, Motzko starting his 4th line against the first line of Quinnipiac was also very stupid.
Not great,
a funny story about that game. I was in a movie theater watching the new Indiana Jones movie with my girlfriend at that time. And we went out to eat before the game, and I had to pulled up on my phone, and it went to the intermission before the overtime right when we got to the theater. So I'm like, damn it, I'm gonna miss how this goes. And I have notifications on for guys like you, for Go Huskies Woo, and for several other Husky personalities that I like to hear from. And I got I kid you not 6 sequential notifications on my phone. So I'm like, okay, either the Gophers just won it in overtime or Quinnipiac just did the funniest thing ever.
Something really good or really bad happened.
Yeah. And I take out my phone because we're sitting in the back row of the theater. I take out my phone, I look at it, and I look at my CHN notification. I'm like, oh my God. And I see it was 8 seconds in, and I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. That was a very sweet topping to the bitter end that was the season last year for St. Cloud State.
TJ Selvey, feels like things gelled the last 2 series, and it looks like we've got 4 solid lines. I agree. Do you think Larson has settled in the right groupings? Yeah, I definitely think so. I don't know what you would change. Again, I did say switching out Rogers and Okabe, and I still don't hate that idea. I still don't think Brett's gonna do it. But just anything to kind of get Okabe going, and I think he will. I think it's just a matter of a win. But I think just the lines that he has right now, this isn't the days of, where we have the Coaslas and the Jacksons and et cetera, but we're going to have solid play up and down. And we're learning to win different ways, and we're winning games, arguably that you can say we shouldn't. We're winning games that we should. And again, 2 overtime losses, which is just clown hockey when it comes to me. We're singing a whole different tune, and that's the crazy thing about college hockey.
Yeah, I think groupings wise, he has done a great job with it. I wouldn't be shocked if you see just like a line shifted 1 or 2 like up or down. Like I wouldn't be surprised if like Veeti, Werner, and Okabe are like the top line on a given day or anything like that. By the way, if for anybody that cares, the Veeti, Werner, Okabe line is the international line again. If anybody really matters, or you can
time
call
is
it.
a flat circle.
Yeah.
The wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. So,
or you could call him the. I like calling him the Bros and Oaks.
Oh, I kind of like that one.
So that's also something. It wouldn't shock me if Adam Ingram, moves around a little bit because I like him on that line with Hall. But I feel like that's I feel like that's too much finesse on one line. You know what I mean? Like you need a guy that's going to, drive it. And that was Jack Rogers last weekend, and it can be Ports in other games. But Adam Ingram is too good to the point where I feel like he'll go on a run where like he has a 5-point weekend, and then he'll slide up to like he'll take, I don't know, like Molinar's spot on the right wing or something for like a game or 2. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think all in all, he's settled in the right combinations for that. Defensive wise, pairs are correct. I'd say so as well. So
yeah, and I think this is where Larson will have these lines kind of set up, and like you said, he'll move some things, shuffle them around, but this might be like old reliable here, like to get you out of the rut. You'll kind of pencil this one back in. Is like, okay, let's go back to this one because we changed some things up. Sometimes he might even put everything into a blender and just kind of for a game or 2, but I think this is going to be kind of a fallback. It's like option because of how well these players are playing.
That stretch after Duluth last year where we didn't have any semblance of the consistency on the line, where it was just like all going wrong for St. Cloud, was odd last year. But yeah, I think this will stay. One thing I want to touch on, we talked about the Ryman Gross-Ashawn line. Coach Larson says that this line for him is his new Hammer line from when Will Hammer was here that year that they played Mankato and beat them in the Frozen Four. So he thinks that this line is his new Hammer line. He feels like he can put them out against anybody. And I talked to him a little bit post game, which is where the soundbite that people are liking comes from. Grant Ashawn is just a rat. He is so pesky. He's just so fun to watch play. He would be the worst player that I would ever watch play hockey if he was on any other team. But since he's here, I love him. He scores. I love him.
He really reminds me of like a Nick Oliver type. And that type
Coach,
of a grind about.
He said that.
Oh,
he said that when we were in Kalamazoo. I talked to him. He's like, "Does he remind you of anybody at all?" He says, "Yeah." And kid you not, he goes to the guy over there in Madison, Nick Oliver.
Well, that's why you listen to this podcast, because I just know so much. Like I just pick up on that,
and then he coined the group on Saturday a gritty bunch of rats. So I guess that's their identity now. So that's what I will be calling them now for the rest of the season, is a bunch of rats.
Perfect. Well, Alex, I do want to thank you for kind of subbing in. Any last thoughts? Any last words here before you start doing some homework and listen to KVSC for the weekend?
Just listen to us call games, or if you want to listen to Jim Rich and Gino Parrish, I like what those guys do as well. Husky Productions does a great job with their whole escapade, so a big shout out to them as well. We will be going live for pregame on Friday at 7:00 p.m. Central. On Saturday, we'll be live for pregame for women's hockey at 12:50, and then for men's hockey, we'll be going live at 5:30. So that should be a lot of fun. We're going to try to do some sort of post-game show, like an actual in-presser conference post-game show this week, if we can figure it out enough. But we'll let you know about that. And then also, if you feel free not to plug ourselves anymore, if you want to become a KVSC member, you can go to the kvsc.org KVSC webpage and click on the donate tab, and it helps send us guys like little old me to Kalamazoo, where they're disappointed because there's no hot dogs. So we appreciate everything you guys do for us.
Yep. And you had to take the road trip back too, right after the game. So
yep, we drove back Saturday night and got here at 5:00 in the morning.
Whew. So, thank you. Obviously, KVSC, just kind of it's just world class when it comes to, really anything MassCom related when it comes to the St. Cloud State, UTVS, KVSC. You guys do a magnificent job, and it shows with all the awards you guys win. So keep up the great work.
Well, we appreciate it. We will try to win more so we can, get that. And then hopefully I'll talk to Coach. Maybe they can bring some hardware home come March or April too.
There we go. Love it. I'm Weldie at More Clappers, MOAR More Clappers. Alex, want to plug your Twitter quick?
At Alex in the booth on everything, by the way. So Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, all that jazz. So feel free to give me a follow.
Oh,
yeah,
I'm not cool enough
sometimes.
For Instagram. So
if you're in a mood to hear my NFL takes, because need to remind you, there's only one Broncos team that won this week, and it was my Broncos. So let's ride, baby.
And on that note, until next time, go Huskies. Woo!
Whoa.